Dr. Mohammed Lucian was doing his daily rounds. He had 22 patients. Some seriously ill and some less so. But, they all needed, and he hoped, all depended on his attention. He was a kind man, with generous eyes. He was always willing to listen to the stories of his patients. He had certainly heard some stories. The Sahara Clinic took individuals from all over the continent. A lot came from refugee camps, and sought survival within these seaweed-sanitized white walls. They were the only respiratory specialist institution in West Africa. Smiling silently to himself, he whirled his white coat into place around his shoulders, whipped his stethoscope around his neck and slid a biro pen into the breast pocket of his coat. As he strolled the corridors of the hospital, greeting the nurses with a kind smile and a frivolous wink, he flipped through his log. He came to the widow's page and stopped. A nurse had spoken to him earlier, informing him that the widow had been fully conscious early that morning, even eating a little breakfast. Her blood pressure had finally stabilized. He looked forward to meeting her properly. The bronchitis had nearly killed her, but the emergency crew had pulled her out of the camp just in time. It was late in the afternoon when he finally made it to the widow's bedside. Approaching her portion of the ward, he saw her closed eyes and assumed she was sleeping. Unclipping her status book from the metal frame at the bottom of her bed, he opened it. It seemed that she was doing much better. When he raised his eyes from the paper, the widow's eyes were open. She smiled a tiny smile and began to speak quietly.
"Doctor, thank you. You have saved my life."
"Not at all. I didn't do much really, just a few tweaks here and there."
Mohammed smiled.
"You are very strong. You have fought this all by yourself, my dear."
"Well, I couldn't have done it without you. Please, will you let me hold your hand?"
"Of course,"
Mohammed replied, sitting down beside her and placing his hand in hers.
"How are you feeling?"
"Much better, thank you. I feel like I am getting stronger. My mind feels clearer."
"Yes, that will be because we have taken you off of the morphine now. It takes a while for the foggy feeling to clear."
"Doctor."
The widow squeezed Mohammed's hand and held on tightly.
"I am sorry to burden you, but I need to speak to somebody about this. I am in turmoil about my future. The worry is with me day and night. I need to relieve my mind. Can I confide in you?"
"Of course, my dear. What is the matter?"
Explained the entire story of her husband's death at the hands of the Liberian ex-warlords, the bones of his body perhaps still lying crumpled in the marketplace. She described the unimaginable wealth she had inherited, the widow that she had fled the country with the aid of the UN, entrusting her inheritance to Ed Work, the American agent, after his visit to her home to investigate an illicit arms dealer. She described their discussion in her living room in Monrovia over a long campfire in the warm Liberian dusk and wept with the fate of her fortune.
"But now, Walk is dead, and there is nothing I can do. I received the message by mail from his office a month ago. It seems that my dear friend Mr. Walk was killed in a major Indonesian earthquake. Here."
She removed a neatly folded, cream document from the bag at her bedside.
The letter states that he returned to the U.S. Apparently his investigation was stopped by an American government agency just before he could subpoena the dealers.
"That truly is a tragedy,"
the doctor said, scanning the letter, confirming the details. The widow continued.
"He had to return briefly to government office in Texas to finalize the cancellation of his investigation. That's when I received the first letter."
The widow produced another smaller, crumpled piece of paper from her bag.
"He says here that he put my inheritance into a security deposit box at the First National Bank of Texas for safekeeping. He includes the details of the account, the name of a trustworthy contact and a passcode. I'm a rich woman, Mohammed. I will pay you handsomely if you can help me to secure my fortune and leave this continent."
"But what happened to Walk?"
The letter says that he was reassigned to a U.N project in Indonesia, in Bali. He was killed in an earthquake. That is all I know. Will you help me?
"I will. But I think we should find an investor for your money." I know just what to do.
The doctor gently removed his hand from the widow's own, stood up and walked to the next bed. Felicity Nabassa was reading a pamphlet for an Australian forest fires charity when the doctor approached.
Hello Felicity, how are you feeling?
I am getting weaker, doctor. I can feel it.
Felicity, we can beat this, stay strong.
I am trying, doctor. What can I say?
I will be back in a moment, my dear, but could I ask you to lend me your computer briefly? The widow in the next bed would like me to help her to write an email to a relative.
Of course, doctor. You know you are too kind.
Thank you, Felicity.
The doctor said, pulling the MacBook Pro from Felicity's Louis Vuitton handbag and returning to the widow's bedside.
Okay.
Mohammed said, sitting himself down close to the bedside and stretching his arms out, his fingers woven together and bending backwards. He opened the computer on his lap.
Dear sir, my name is Dr. Mohammed Lucian, a medical doctor and the sole proprietor of the Respiratory Specialist Hospital, Sahara Clinic and Maternity, in Accra, Ghana. I understand that an anonymous email is probably not the best way to contact you because of the confidentiality which my proposal demands, but time is of the essence in this case. I hope you understand. I have a widow here in my clinic. She is on political asylum from Liberia and currently staying at the Accra, Ghana, and West African refugee camp. She has been seriously ill for some months now and is currently in the hospital being treated for chronic bronchitis. This woman has confided in me based on the free medical attention I have been giving to her. She has revealed to me certain details about her late husband, and the repercussions of her tale could be of some interest to you. Her husband was a top government military officer in Liberia during the Civil War. He was assassinated a few months ago in a revenge killing enacted by soldiers loyal to a former warlord and enemy of the government whilst shopping in a marketplace in Monrovia. My patient has inherited an unimaginable fortune from her late husband. She has asked me to source a credible and trustworthy partner abroad who will manage her funds for investment. After her husband's death, the widow was visited by an American U.N. official named Edward Walk. Walk was searching for leads on a suspected gun runner. On hearing the news of the top military officer's death, he offered to help my patient secure her new wealth in the US and find a way of securing her emigration there. However, Ed Walk's arms dealing investigation was cancelled under suspicious circumstances and he was reassigned to a U.N. project in Indonesia. Unfortunately, Ed Walk was recently killed in a major earthquake on the island of Bali. He had however secured a widow's inheritance in an account in Texas prior to his departure for the South Seas, and so it is that I implore you, in the name of Allah, to take up Ed Walk's post and aid my patient in clearing the consignments with the American officials. Confidentiality is imperative in this case. If U.S. Customs were to realize the origin of this consignment, their suspicions would likely result in the removal of the wealth and the cancellation of its potential for investment, thus leaving the widow stranded here in the refugee camp, a fate that would most certainly kill her before her time. We believe in you. We know that you are confident and ready to take on this responsibility, to help us manage this large sum, to the profit of all involved. We also need to establish some way of creating a new home for the widow in the US where her illness can be better treated. After she disclosed this information to me, I requested that she entrust to me all the documents relating to this deposit. I now have these documents secured and I will not hesitate to fax to you the copies as a proof for your inspection as soon as we receive your response to this email. I am obliged to assist this lady. I know that her business knowledge is limited and as such she cannot manage this fund herself, alone in Africa. In order to avoid any trace of her by the government, I need to trust that we have a mutual understanding. After I am satisfied with your honesty, we shall make plans on how the funds can be secured into an account in your name, after which you will arrange to travel immediately to meet with the bank for clearance. The unimaginable wealth is contained in a sealed safety deposit box and it is registered and declared as containing family treasures and precious items. As far as I am aware, the bank do not know that there is cash money in the box. Allow me to assure you that this transaction is 100% risk-free, and from my discussions with the widow, we have agreed to give you a reasonable percentage of the total sum for your involvement and assistance. We can discuss this further upon our receipt of your quick response. Thanks, and God bless you for your understanding. Best regards. Dr. Mohammed Lucian. 00233244937082.
Mohammed clicked the send button.
It is done,
he said, looking up from the screen. The widow did not reply. She had fallen into a peaceful sleep. Her face seemed calm and contented, like a great weight had been lifted from her body. Mohammed closed the computer and picked up his red plastic folder. Opening it up, he went about his normal routine, checking the drug levels and heart rate and logging them neatly on the paper form. He smiled as he left the widow's bedside, happy to be helping put such a sick patient's mind at ease. He approached the bedside of Felicity Nabassa and returned the computer to its case in her handbag.
Thank you, Felicity. The widow appreciates your help very much.
That's okay.
Felicity whispered, her eyes half closed.
Are you feeling okay?
Mohammed asked, placing a hand on her head, his voice echoing in her thickly numbed and doughy mind, booming like an underwater volcano.
I am sleepy,
she whispered, her eyes closing slowly and tightly as she fell away from the doctor and into sleep.